Hey at Woodlanders, today I wanted to demystify what it means to have coppice with standards. How many standards do you have in an acre? We're here today in Rosseston, which is a village in South Derbyshire in the UK. This is a woodland that was planted as part of the National Forest plantation grants around about 20 years ago. And there's about 20 acres here all planted up, and the whole woodland is doing really well. 2 years ago I was asked by the landowner Jeff if I wouldn't mind just coppicing and managing the Hazel Coppice to try and get that into some sort of rotation. So here we are trying to establish a Hazel Coppice in amongst a woodland that is mostly high forest. That means woodland that's allowed to grow on after subsequent thinnings to produce big tall trees ready for a final timber crop. However, coppice with standards is a much different management process, and what it means is you get an understory of hazel stalls, lots and lots of hazel plants all growing together quite closely, and the idea being when they're growing closely together they reach up and reach for the light. A standard is what a name given to a tree that's left to stand alone and grow on to maturity. They call them standards. So behind me you'll see lots and lots of oak trees. So this is Hazel Coppice with a planting of oak as the standard crop. Due to the grant constraints, it meant that it couldn't be planted with hazel as the majority species. It had to be more mixed than that. Hence what we have now is far too many oak standards over the Hazel Coppice. If nothing is done with that, the oaks will get bigger and bigger, the hazels will be shaded out, and the hazel stalls will die off. They need light to survive. So you might see behind me quite a lot of orange spots on the trees. That is for a thinning that's about to happen tomorrow. You might wonder, how on earth did you decide how many standard trees to leave behind? No one's ever given me a direct answer to that question. I've managed to find what I can only describe as a ballpark figure. And I'm going to talk about hazel with oak standards. If the standards are of a different species, then the figures may well be different. For instance, beech casts a heavy shade, so the numbers on beech might be a lot less than they are for oak. But if you've got ash or silver birch as your standard crop, because of their slightly less dense shade, they might be few more than the oaks that I'm going to describe. Cutting to the chase, I'm going to talk to you about an acre of hazel and based all my figures around an acre coop of Hazel Coppice. They say that in an acre of Hazel Coppice, which would have anything up to about 800 to 1,000 hazel stalls in it, you would have a maximum of 12 mature oak trees. By mature, I'm talking about trees that are ready for felling because they've reached their ideal size for a product. These days, I would say, because the management processes have slightly changed and we've got bigger machinery to be able to deal with slightly bigger logs, I would say a mature oak you're looking at between 100 and 120 years. Now I'm going to base my figures on 100-year-old oaks being mature because that makes my figures a little bit easier to understand. So in an acre of coppice you would have 12 mature oaks that could be ready for felling. You would cut that on a rotation of between 6 and 7 years. Again, I'm going to use the ballpark figure of 7 years because that makes my maths a little bit easier. But what's interesting to note is 12 mature oaks would not be the sum total of oaks within that acre of Hazel Coppice. You would have anything up to between 50 and maybe 70 different oaks of different ages and girths all over the site of that acre of Hazel Coppice. Let's say you've got 50 oaks in that acre of coppice, and each oak takes 100 years to mature to felling, and you've got a rotation of every 7 years. Every 7th year you do the hazel cut. There'll be some oaks that want thinning out because they've reached their maturity.
You're enjoying this video, but can I just interrupt you for a minute?
I just wanted to take a minute to try and explain what I've done with the picture. I don't think it fulfilled what I wanted it to. As I drew this, the number ones that you see are for the very first rotational cut. Then you would wait another 6 or 7 years then, and the number 2 trees, the second cut, would get cut out. But in the meantime, the small little green dots would have grown in size. And medium-sized green dots would have grown to a more mature size. And that's why gradually the picture started to fill up with more and more green. An acre is almost 70 by 70 yards. That would be cut every 7 years. So 14 cuts over 100 years would be around about the 50 or 60 mature trees that you would get in that area.
Thank you for listening. Let's go back to that.
And that figure, based on my estimates, would be around about 3 to 4 mature oaks every 7 years of Hazel Coppice cut. And that's based on the fact that if you've got 50 oaks in there, each taking 100 years to mature, and you're cutting hazel every 7 years, 7 sevens of 49. So that means if you were to cut 3 fully grown, fully mature oaks every 7 years, then over the course of the 100 years of maturity, you will have cut all of those 50 oaks down. But during that period, you would encourage other oaks to take their place that would be used later. In 100 years time, they would be mature. So they might only be quite small diameter. They might be 6-7 foot. It may be a product of self-set, or it could be a stall of an oak that you cut down before, and it's got one leading stem that's really nice and clean, and you might single that out by cutting all the other stems off that stall and leaving that one oak tree to reach maturity off an old oak stall that has coppiced up with the hazel. I hope in a way that's given you some idea of what coppice with standards means, especially for hazel with oaks as the main standard crop. Over the years, I've found it quite difficult to get a definite answer on this, and I think because the amount of knowledge about coppice with standards has been lost since World War II, we're gradually trying to find our feet again. About 50 oak trees per acre, with at any one time about 3 reaching maturity every 7 years. Anyway, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate your support. Let me know if you think otherwise, or if you've got evidence of what coppice with standards is, and whether you think my explanation is adequate, or whether you feel that you would do it a slightly different way. And I'm always open to suggestions, because I've only found this out by doing lots and lots of research, and to be fair, research seems quite thin on the ground. So I'm all up for what you think. Pop it in the comments, let me know. I'll try and respond to that. And what the comments can do is undo some of what I said. We all get to learn from the comments about what is best practice in such coppice with standard systems. You might notice behind me that we've got a long way to go before we get to a proper coppice with standards density in this woodland, but we're on the right track, and we're doing what we can to make this woodland thrive and survive for the future. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. No, that was boring. You want something a bit more like. I just wanted to take a minute to try and... Oh, please don't.
Thank you.